Hey guys, how's it going, friends and family? It's been kind of a crazy week. We got a few additions to the musical family. First up is a TS-808. It's one of the pedals. It's an overdrive pedal. One of the ones that I've been kind of coveting for a while. Ideally, it would have been a TS-9, but TS-808 is a very close second. Also added to the family is my new guitar. It's a Court hollow body made in Korea, and it sounds wonderful. It's the first hollow body I've ever played. It's the first hollow body I've ever owned, and I'm kind of in love with it. I really like it. The action's super low, the tone on it is gorgeous, and it takes pedals really well. The electronics are really solid. The manufacturing on it's really solid. I never heard of Korean guitars until I found out I was moving here, and I was like, I wonder what Korean electric guitars are like. And they get great reviews online, and I gotta say, I'm pretty impressed. So chances are, when you see me playing guitar from now on, you're gonna see me playing this gal. So something that's been kind of weighing on my mind a lot. It's always kind of bothered me when people use subjective terms to describe music. Things like, oh, this tone is very bright versus this tone is very dark versus this is a happy sound or a brooding sound. It never sat well with me because to have those things, it's relative. So in order to have happy, you have to have sad. In order to have brooding, you have to have bright. You can't have consonance without dissonance. And I never really liked that. I always felt like there was an absolute to music that everybody was missing, and it turns out that there is. There's not a lot of studies that have gone into it. It's a very niche field, but it's out there. I'm going to start a series for you guys. I'm going to do a little bit more research week by week and bring to you guys more and more information to try and help put it into context so that those of you who just felt like you never could understand music and how it worked and how it interacted, I want to help you because there are a lot of resources helping out those who find it easier. When I say it's a major chord and it sounds happy and bright, there are some people for whom that is enough. That is good. I get it. Yes, happy, bright, perfect. Minor is sad. But a very close friend of mine, when I was explaining this to him, looked at me and said, "Why though?" And I said, "Well, it's a major third step with a minor third on top of it, and that makes happy sounds." And he was like, "But why is that happy? What about it makes it happy?" And I said, "Well, it's the relationship between the notes." Well, what relationship is that though? Like mathematically, why is that happy versus sad? And we can go and we can fall into the music as a cultural construct. Aesthetics being in the eye of the beholder as a fallback explanation, but that never really sat well with me. I always thought there was more of an objective way to describe music, and I'm going to get into that today. So the first thing you have to understand about music or sound in general is that it's all compression waves. We like to think of sine waves, right? When we talk about waveforms, that's how we understand the electromagnetic spectrum. It's how we understand light behaving as a wave. It's how we represent them as they're sinusoidal functions. So that's how we represent them. You have to understand that sound itself is sinusoidal in nature, but it doesn't behave quite like the quite like electromagnetic energy. It's a little bit different. It forms as a pressure wave, a compression wave. If you've ever been at a concert and you felt that pressure on your chest every time the bass drum thumps, it's because it's a pressure wave. It's a giant speaker that's actually vibrating, and every time it vibrates, it pushes out air, and that air bumps into other air, and that air bumps into other air, and that air bumps into other air. And we get this kind of a pattern where we have a compressed pocket of air followed by uncompressed pocket of air followed by another compressed pocket of air, uncompressed, compressed, etc., etc. It's kind of like if you take a slinky and you extend it really long and you bunch up a whole lot of it and then you let it go and you can see it. You can see the wave travel from one side of the slinky to the other. It's the exact same concept. That's how sound moves. The way we typically represent it is with the sine wave, where the peaks and the troughs correlate with these compressed pockets of air. So why is that important? Because frequency. Every single note has its own frequency. A440 hertz. So the fourth octave of A on a piano, on a guitar, on a saxophone, on a trumpet is always going to be 440 hertz. It's measured in hertz. A hertz is 1 cycle per second. So every time you hear an A, somebody hits a tuning fork and that's A440, there are 440 compressed pockets of air connecting with your eardrum every second. And based on that, now we start dealing with ratios. Here we have two sound waves. top one, we have 1 cycle. The bottom one, we have 2 cycles, and they sync up perfectly. It's 2 to 1. We call that an octave. And as you can probably guess, the frequency has doubled. So if this top one is A440, this bottom one is going to be the next octave of A, but it's going to be A880. And every time you double, or every time you go up an octave, you double the frequency. So you can see how this gets out of hand really, really quick. Because if we go increasing octaves, we have A440 and then 880 and then 1760 and 3520, etc., etc., etc. If we go the other way, we have A440 and then A220, A110, A55, and we can get very, very, very small. The fact that octave sine waves line up so perfectly, the fact that it's 2 to 1, a 2 to 1 cycle ratio, is what we deem consonants, agreeable sounds, happy sounds. When we hear sounds agreeing like that, when we hear that ratio being so tight like that, 2 to 1, that's when we hear very, very, very pleasing sounds, very happy sounds. The further we get from that ratio, perfect fifth, perfect fourth, then we're starting to get 3 to 1, 4 to 1, which is still pretty consonant, but then we get into the thirds and the sixths and the seconds and then some microtones, and that's where we get into like the 7 to 1, 8 to 1, 12 to 1 ratios, which the larger they get, the more dissonance we hear, which causes crunchy sounds, it causes unhappier sounds, that kind of a thing. Ideally, what I'd like to do next week is I'm going to do a lot more research on these theories, and I'd like to actually show you guys what it looks like graphically, like this, when you build a major chord or you build a minor chord, where the dissonances line up, where the consonances line up, where the waveforms line up, what happiness actually looks like, what sadness looks like, what dark looks like, what brooding looks like, what happy looks like, what bright looks like. So hopefully you're not bored to death. Hopefully that was fun and insightful and entertaining. And yeah, see you guys next week. Here we go, week 3. This is the part where it gets tough. that's about as far as I'm getting this week. Thanks for putting up with me. It's going to be better next week.